At exactly 4:17 a.m., my eyes snapped open. No alarm, no noise, no reason. Just that sudden, sickening feeling, like someone had been watching me for a long time and finally decided I'd slept enough. My heart was pounding. My mouth felt dry. I reached for my phone, already knowing what time it would show. 4:17. I stared at the screen, trying to convince myself it was coincidence. Everyone wakes up randomly sometimes. It happens. So I rolled over, pulled the blanket tighter, and forced myself back to sleep. The next night, it happened again. Exactly 4:17 a.m. Same rush of fear. Same tight chest. Same strange silence in the apartment. That's when it stopped feeling normal. By the fourth night, I was scared to fall asleep. I stayed up late watching videos, scrolling social media, waiting to feel tired. When I finally drifted off, I remember thinking, please, don't wake me up at 4:17 again. My eyes opened. The room was completely dark. I didn't need to check the time. I already knew. But I checked anyway. 4:17. I sat up slowly and listened. No cars outside. No neighbors. No wind. Just silence. Too perfect. Too empty. That's when I felt it. Not a sound. Not a movement. A presence. Like someone was standing just outside my bedroom in the hallway, breathing quietly, waiting. I held my breath. Seconds passed. Nothing moved. No footsteps, no creaking floor, no shadows. But the feeling didn't go away. It stayed. Watching. Waiting. The next morning, I tried to laugh it off. I Googled, waking up same time every night. Stress, anxiety, sleep cycles, hormones, normal stuff. But deep down, I knew this wasn't normal. Because every night after that, something changed. The air started feeling colder at 4:17. Heavier. Like the apartment itself was holding its breath. On the sixth night, I heard something for the first time. A soft sound. Barely noticeable. A slow, dragging shuffle coming from the far end of the hallway. And whatever was making that sound was getting closer. The sound stopped the moment I noticed it. That scared me more than the noise itself, because it meant whatever was out there knew I was awake. I stayed frozen in bed, staring at the dark doorway. My eyes slowly adjusted, revealing the thin outline of the hallway beyond. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Like the distance between me and whatever was out there had just gotten shorter. The next night, I prepared. I left a small lamp on in the hallway, just enough light to see shadows, just enough to feel safer. At 4:17 a.m., my eyes snapped open again. My heart was already racing. The hallway light was still on, and in its faint glow, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A shadow. Tall, thin, standing at the far end of the hallway. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there, perfectly still, like it had been paused mid-step. I squeezed my eyes shut, counted to 5, and opened them again. The hallway was empty. No shadow. No movement. Just the quiet hum of the lamp. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, a half-dream, my mind playing tricks on me. But the fear stayed long after sunrise. The third night after that, I heard the footsteps again. Slow. Soft. Deliberate. Not rushing, not sneaking. Just walking. One step. Then another. I stared at the doorway, my chest tight, waiting for something to appear. Nothing did. But the sound stopped much closer than before. Too close. The next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. A faint footprint. Barely visible. Right outside my bedroom door. It was long, narrow, and it didn't match my foot size. I cleaned it up, my hands shaking, trying not to panic. Someone must have broken in, I told myself. But nothing was missing. Doors locked, windows sealed. No signs of forced entry. That night, I placed my phone on my desk, camera facing the hallway. If something was really there, I would finally have proof. At 4:17 a.m., I woke up again. This time, I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. I waited. And then, the hallway lights slowly flicked off. One click. Total darkness. And in that darkness, I heard breathing. Not mine. Right outside my door. I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there, staring at the door, waiting for sunrise. Every small sound made me flinch. The building settling, a car passing outside, my own breathing. When morning finally came, I jumped out of bed and grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. The camera app was still open. Recording saved. I hesitated before pressing play. Part of me hoped the video would show nothing. That this was all just in my head. I was wrong. The video started at 4:16 a.m. I saw myself sleeping, still, unmoving. Then, at exactly 4:17, my body jerked slightly, like something inside me had suddenly gone tense. At the far end of the hallway, a shape appeared. At first, it looked like a shadow pulling itself away from the wall. Tall, thin, too thin. Its arms were long, hanging unnaturally low. Its head was tilted slightly to the side, like it was curious. It stood there for almost 30 seconds, just watching me. Then, it took a step forward. The floor didn't creak. It didn't make a sound. Just a smooth, slow movement, like it was gliding rather than walking. My stomach twisted. Another step. Then another. Each one bringing it closer to my door. Then the screen suddenly went black. Recording stopped. Not paused. Not corrupted. Just ended. The file properties said it stopped at 4:18 a.m. 1 minute. That's all it took. I replayed the video at least 20 times, hoping I'd see something different. Some explanation. Some normal detail I'd missed. But every time, the same thing. A figure. Watching. Moving closer. And then nothing. I checked the hallway. No marks. No footprints. No scratches. Nothing. But the air felt colder than usual. That night, I didn't want to be in my apartment. I thought about staying with a friend, a hotel, anywhere. But a strange thought stopped me. What if it followed me? What if 4:17 wasn't tied to the place? But to me, so I stayed. I moved my bed so I could see straight into the hallway. Left every light on. Set up a second camera. And waited. At 4:17, my eyes opened. The hallway was empty. Too empty. No shadow. No figure. For a moment, I felt relief. Then I realized something. The breathing was coming from inside my room. Right behind me. I didn't dare turn around. Every instinct in my body screamed at me not to move. The breathing was slow, calm, controlled. Too calm. Each breath brushed the back of my neck, cold and damp, like air coming from a freezer. I stayed frozen, staring at the wall, my eyes burning, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Then, nothing. The breathing stopped. I waited another full minute before forcing myself to roll onto my back. The room was empty. No shadow, no shape, no movement. Just my lamp, my desk, my chair, and the soft hum of electricity. But something was wrong. My bedroom door was open. I always slept with it closed. Always. Slowly, I sat up and checked my phone. 4:18 a.m. 1 minute. Again. I reviewed the camera footage later that morning. The hallway camera showed nothing. No shadow, no movement. But the camera in my room. At 4:17, I stopped breathing for nearly 20 seconds. Then my blanket slowly lifted. Just a few inches. Like something invisible was pulling it upward. My skin crawled. I hadn't moved. I knew that. I slept on my back. But the video showed the blanket rise, and then gently fall back down. After that, a faint indentation appeared on my mattress, right beside me, as if someone had carefully sat down. I moved out of my apartment that day. Packed only the essentials. Clothes, laptop, phone, charger. I went to stay with my friend Mark across town. Didn't tell him everything, just said I was dealing with insomnia and stress. That night, for the first time in weeks, I fell asleep quickly. No fear. No tension. Number 4:17. Until I woke up to Mark shaking me. "Dude," he whispered, "why are you standing in the hallway at night?" My stomach dropped. "I wasn't," I said. He stared at me, pale. "You were, at exactly 4:17, just standing there, not moving, facing my bedroom door." I felt cold spread through my chest. "What was I doing?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "You weren't blinking. You weren't breathing normally. You were just staring." "And then," I whispered. Mark swallowed. "And then you slowly turned your head toward me and smiled." I didn't believe him at first. I told Mark he must have been half asleep, that he'd imagined it, night terrors, stress, anything. But the look on his face told me he was serious. "I tried to wake you," he said quietly. "You didn't respond. I even touched your shoulder. You were ice cold." That word stuck with me. Cold. The same cold I felt every night at 4:17. That morning, I checked my phone. No missed calls. No messages. No alarms. But my step counter showed something impossible. At 4:17 a.m., I had walked 143 steps. I hadn't left the bed. I started keeping notes. Every morning, I wrote down what I remembered. And every morning, there was a gap. A blank space between 4:17 and 4:18. Just 60 seconds. But something was happening inside that minute. Something I couldn't remember. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, lights on, coffee in hand, watching the clock. 3:59. 4:05. 4:12. My eyelids felt heavy. I fought it. 4:16. I blinked. And suddenly, it was morning. 7:03 a.m. 3 hours. Gone. My phone was on the floor. The front door was unlocked. And my shoes were covered in dirt. Mark stood in the kitchen, pale and silent. "You went outside," he said. "What?" I whispered. "You walked out at 4:17, didn't say anything, didn't react when I called your name." "Where did I go?" He hesitated. "Down the street, toward the old factory." My blood turned to ice. The factory had been abandoned for years. People avoided it. 3 teenagers had gone missing there a decade ago. Their bodies were never found. That night, I checked my phone location history. There it was, a single dot, at 4:17 a.m., right on top of the factory. And one more thing, a new audio file. Recorded at exactly 4:17. I pressed play. At first, there was only wind. Then, footsteps. My footsteps. And a whisper right next to the microphone. "You're learning so fast. I didn't tell Mark about the audio file. I couldn't. Saying it out loud would make it real. But I couldn't ignore it either." The whisper stayed in my head all day, repeating over and over. "You're learning so fast." Learning what? That night, I went back to the factory. Not because I wanted to. Because I felt pulled. Like something inside me already knew the way. The place looked worse than I remembered. Broken windows, rusted metal, graffiti peeling off the walls. The air smelled like wet concrete and decay. I stood outside the entrance for almost 10 minutes, trying to convince myself to leave. My phone buzzed. 4:16 a.m. My chest tightened. I stepped inside. The moment the clock hit 4:17, the world changed. The air dropped in temperature. Every sound vanished. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic. Just silence. And then, footsteps, not mine. They echoed through the massive dark hall, slow and deliberate. I followed them. Each step felt heavier than the last, like gravity was increasing. The deeper I went, the more familiar the place felt. That terrified me. Because I knew I had never been here before. Yet my body moved with confidence, turning corners without hesitation, avoiding broken floors before I could see them. Finally, I reached a small side room. The door was half open. Inside, I found old chairs arranged in a perfect circle. In the center, carved into the concrete floor, was a symbol. Rough, jagged, deep. It looked less like writing and more like claw marks. Suddenly, my phone vibrated again. A new message. Unknown number. "Look up." I raised my head and saw my reflection. Not in a mirror, in the glass of a shattered office window. But the reflection wasn't matching my movements. It stood still, smiling. Behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But in the glass, the reflection lifted its hand and slowly pointed down at the symbol. That's when the memory hit me. A flash. Blinding. Screams. Chains. Cold hands pulling me into darkness. And a voice whispering, "We started this together." I stumbled back, gasping. My phone slipped from my fingers. When I looked down, the symbol was glowing faintly. And the time on my screen read 4:18 a.m. I woke up in my bed. My own bed. Morning light spilling through the curtains. For a moment, I thought the factory had been a dream. Then I smelled rust. And something worse. Something old. Burned. My clothes were still on. Dirty. Torn at the knees, stained with something dark. My phone lay on the pillow beside me. One new video. Recorded at 4:17 a.m. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The video showed the factory. That same room. The circle of chairs. And me standing in the center. But I wasn't alone. 3 other figures stood around me. 2 men. 1 woman. All older. All pale. All terrified. Their mouths were open, but no sound came out. And then, something stepped into the circle. It was tall, too tall. Its limbs bent the wrong way. Its face looked unfinished, like it was still being formed. But the eyes were mine. The thing raised its hand, and I heard my own voice whisper, "This will save us." The video cut out. I dropped the phone. Fragments of memory started flooding back. Not dreams, not imagination, real memories. Buried, hidden, locked away. 15 years ago, my parents used to work security at the factory. They sometimes brought me with them when they couldn't find a babysitter. One night, there was an accident, a fire. 4 workers were trapped underground. The rescue teams couldn't reach them in time. They were declared dead. But I remembered something else, something no one else did. A hidden maintenance tunnel. One my father had shown me, and I remembered showing it to them. I led them down. Deep. Too deep. Where the walls were covered in old symbols. Where the air felt wrong. Where something waited. They made a deal. Not with God. Not with anything human. And they used me to seal it. My memories were erased. But the thing they woke up, never forgot. At 4:17, every night, it comes back. Because the deal is ending. And now, it wants the rest. The memories wouldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the circle, the symbol, the thing with my eyes. And I finally understood. The deal had rules. Very strict ones. Rule 1. Every night at 4:17, it must be acknowledged. That's why I always woke up. Rule 2. It can only move closer when it is seen. That's why the shadow kept approaching. Rule 3. It cannot take you until you remember. That was the final stage. And I had just reached it, which meant time was almost over. I found an old newspaper article about the factory fire. 4 workers missing, presumed dead. No bodies recovered. No suspects. No answers. But one detail stood out. The time the fire started. 4:17 a.m. My phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. 2 nights left. My chest tightened. I tried to run. Not just from the city. From the country. I packed everything, booked the first flight I could find, and headed for the airport. Security stopped me at the gate. My passport wouldn't scan. The system kept rejecting it. Every screen around me flickered. For a split second, every monitor showed the same thing. 4:17. Then everything returned to normal, but the message was clear. There was no leaving. That night, I stayed in a hotel. A crowded place. Cameras everywhere. People all around. I thought I'd be safe. At 4:17, the entire floor lost power. Emergency lights cast long shadows down the hallway. And in every shadow, I saw its shape. Not one. Dozens. All facing my door. My phone vibrated. 1 night left. I realized then what the final rule must be. Rule 4. The one who opens the door at the end becomes the door. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The hotel room felt too small, too fragile, like it could collapse around me at any moment. I kept thinking about the rules, about the deal, about what would happen if I didn't follow them. The air grew heavier as the night deepened. I checked the clock over and over, 3:59, 4:05, 4:12. I tried to distract myself. TV, phone, music, nothing helped. Then 4:16. My heart was pounding. I could feel it echoing through my chest. Every muscle tense, every nerve screaming. I sat in the middle of the room, my back against the wall, staring at the door. My suitcase was in front of me, my only weapon if I had to push it open. Then it came, 4:17. The hallway outside went completely silent, the hotel's hum, the faint air conditioning gone. Then I saw movement in the shadows. It wasn't a human shadow, not quite. It was tall, longer than any human should be, limbs bending in wrong directions. Its head tilted slightly, just like I had seen before. And its eyes, mine. They glowed faintly in the darkness, watching, judging, learning. It didn't move forward yet. It waited. I realized something terrifying. It was testing me. It wasn't the time that mattered. It was my reaction. I had a split second to act. I gripped my suitcase, ready to throw it, ready to run, ready to fight. But then the whispers started. Soft, calm, taunting. You're ready, you remember, you belong. I froze. The hallway light flickered. A faint glow appeared, forming the outline of the circle I had seen at the factory. It was spreading across the floor, reaching toward the door. And I realized I had no choice. If I left, if I ran, it would follow. If I stayed, I had a chance. A tiny, impossible chance. I whispered to myself, I will not let it win. and I forced my feet off the ground. I stood. And for the first time, I looked directly into the eyes in the darkness. I stepped into the hallway. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to do anything but face it. But I remembered the rules. Rule 1, acknowledge it. Rule 2, let it move only when seen. Rule 3, it cannot take you until you remember. Rule 4, the one who opens the door at the end becomes the door. I forced my eyes on those glowing orbs, mine. It moved forward, slowly, deliberately, each step echoing inside my skull. And I remembered everything. The factory, the fire, the circle, the clawed symbols, the deal. I had been chosen long before I even knew what fear was. The thing whispered with my voice, "You belong now. You always did." I felt its hand brush against my cheek, not cold, not hot, just wrong. I tried to scream. My voice didn't come out. My throat was locked. The floor beneath me disappeared. Or maybe it wasn't floor anymore. The hallway became infinite, endless walls stretching into darkness. Shadows moving in impossible angles. It leaned close. Its face. My face. And then I understood. I wasn't fighting it. I was merging with it. Becoming it. I wanted to run, but my legs moved on their own. My thoughts weren't mine. And in that moment, the clock ticked. 4:18. I was gone. Not dead, not alive. Just a memory. A shadow waiting for the next 4:17. Somewhere, someone else's eyes will open. Someone else's heartbeat will stop. Someone else will feel the cold brush of my hand, the whisper of my voice. And the cycle will continue. The hotel hallway is empty now. No trace of me. Just the soft hum of electricity, a faint chill in the air, and the feeling that someone is always watching, waiting, learning at 4:17. The screen of my phone shows 4:16 now, and I know what comes next.